evening public hearing. Hopefully we'll have some more visitors coming. And just like to thank everybody who prepared for it. Great. Thank you. Norm, can you take roll call?
Yeah, it's a public meeting. I mean, usually we introduce a commission, we say who's here, then you would talk with who's here, people out there who aren't here, about if you want to ask questions.
Okay. Sorry, we'll go ahead and do it official then.
Okay, so roll call. Commissioner Rodriguez?
Here.
Commissioner Carroll? Here. Commissioner
Here. Should anybody arrive, if they have questions, they have to sign in, introduce themselves. We're happy to take any questions, either during or after the presentations. Great. Thank you, Commissioners. So, welcome everyone. If somebody does them, we may pause and welcome them.
Sure. So the goal of this meeting is to provide an overview of the budgeting process and to provide details of the specific projects, programs, and operations that will be funded in the next fiscal year. This will involve an overview of our combined capital and operating budgets and a discussion of the rates needed to support that budget and changes to our rules and regulations. I'm going to pass this off to some of our leadership team to go into the details, and then we'll close it out with a summary of the rates for next year. So Jamie Bartek, our communications manager, is going to talk to you a little bit about the process.
Do we have a hard copy for us to go along with? Yeah.
Thank you, Josh. And Josh is the executive director, by the way, for the commission. And I am Jamie Bartak. I am the communications manager for the commission. And I'd like to, before we begin to talk about our fiscal year 2020 budget, I'd like to provide a little bit of context in terms of who we are, what we do, and how we go about planning our budget from year to year. So we are a water and sewer utility that serves 250,000 customers in the lower Pioneer Valley. We're one of the largest such utilities in Western Massachusetts and Massachusetts itself. The commission as it exists today was formed in 1996, but we do have a 100-year history in the region. And we have 250 employees stationed in Springfield, as well as Westfield, Agawam, and Ludlow, where we have significant assets. So I'm going to talk through how our water flows through our system, and this will help provide some context to a lot of the projects that we'll be speaking about this evening. So our water supply is located in Cobble Mountain Reservoir in Blandford and Granville, which is 20 miles to the west of the city. It flows from the reservoir to our water treatment plant at West Parish Filters in Westfield, where the water is filtered and disinfected. And then when it is ready for consumption, it's moved into our transmission mains, which take it to the Proven Mountain storage tanks in Agawam, and then into our distribution system into the city. And this is where our customers use and consume the water. And after it goes down the drain, it moves into our sewer collection system. And this is where our wastewater flows as it moves on to our wastewater treatment plant, which is located on Bondi's Island in Agawam. And there it is cleaned and restored and before it is discharged back into the environment via the Connecticut River. So there's a lot of infrastructure involved with moving that water through our system. And as I've mentioned, we have reservoirs, we have 2 treatment plants, but we also have many other assets, one of which includes a hydropower electric plant, which produces electricity using the gravity in our system. But we also have dozens of pump stations, dams, levees, and not to mention 1,000 miles of pipe that we own and maintain. So in order to support all that infrastructure, it takes a lot of engineering, it takes a lot of expertise and materials, but it also requires responsible financial planning. So we spend a good portion of our year, every year, planning for the next fiscal year, which begins on July 1st and goes through June 30th. It's a central, a core part of our business operations. And the reason for this, first and foremost, is because of our commitment to our customers. Financial planning leads to stabilized and predictable rate increases when we need them. We never want to be up here saying we have to raise rates by 70% because we didn't plan ahead, because we know what a shock that would be to a household budget. So we put a lot of time and effort into financial planning so that we make sure that any rate increases that we need to propose are manageable and incremental. We also engage in financial planning in order to establish financial policies and practices in order to promote a sound financial base. So this enables budget discipline, and it also provides for some controlled flexibility for the unexpected projects that may come our way that we weren't planning for. It also enables us to have a higher financial rating from rating agencies, which lowers our interest rates when we have to borrow money. Another reason that financial planning is important to the Commission, particularly at this point in time, is because of the unprecedented need for investment that we're currently experiencing. And there's several drivers to this, but kind of the most important include aging infrastructure. As I mentioned, the Commission has a 100-year-old history in Springfield, and we have a lot of infrastructure that is nearing the end of its useful life. And the fact is, a lot of it will need to be renewed and restored in the coming years, and that's coming to a head at this point in time. We also have a lot of evolving regulations. Scientific advancement and technological advancements have led to new public health standards and environmental standards that our infrastructure needs to adapt to meet. So we need to invest in our infrastructure to keep up with those new regulations. And we also have challenges related to climate change. Precipitation events are expected to be more extreme and more frequent, and we can expect more periods of drought in the future, so our infrastructure has to be able to adapt to that. In addition, cybersecurity challenges are also in the news lately in particular. If people have noticed headlines from Atlanta and Baltimore, they're dealing with a lot of cybersecurity challenges where the whole cities are shut down because of threats. And water utilities are no different. They are targets, and we have to stay on top of that. Those issues. So the financial planning process at the Commission is very involved and comprehensive, but to break it down in just to the general steps, every year we look at our annual spending budget, so all the money that we're going to have to spend for the coming year. So first we look at operations and maintenance, which is what it's going to take and what we're going to have to spend to keep the system running over the course of the year. Then we carry that over and make any adjustments as needed. We also look at capital projects that we have, and those are the infrastructure investments we're going to need to make into renewal. We look at projects that are coming up in the coming year, but also future years, and look at what the spending involved in those is going to be. We also look at our current and future forecasted debt and what the debt service for that is going to be. Once we understand what we're going to need to spend, then we look at the revenue that we're going to bring in. So revenues are forecasted based on consumption trends from our customers. That is where the bulk of our revenue comes from water consumption. So we can look at changes in demand and customer usage patterns to get an estimate of what our revenues will be. In general, for our utility and a lot of water utilities, consumption is generally trending down. Once we understand what's going to be spent and then what's coming in, then we look at our individual financial policies and goals. Those are the goals that we set for ourselves to make sure we're on that sound financial footing I mentioned earlier. So that includes making sure that we have enough revenues to cover our debt service and also enough revenue coming in to maintain adequate cash reserves for those unexpected projects. Once we have all that information, then we look at any gaps and any adjustments to rates that we're going to need to make. Just to go into a little bit more clarification about those revenues before we move on into our budget, I just want to emphasize that the main source of our revenue are the rates that our customers pay. That's where the majority of the funding that we utilize comes from. We also have several other sources, one of which is the State Revolving Fund. This is a low-interest loan program for water and wastewater infrastructure renewal that's administered in Massachusetts by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, utilizing EPA funding. We hope to use more of the State Revolving Fund because it has the lower interest rates, and it also offers some loan forgiveness for disadvantaged communities such as Springfield. However, we're competing with the rest of the water utilities in Massachusetts, and there's only so much money that can be loaned out for year to year, so we can't rely on it 100%. We also issue general revenue bonds. These are essentially loans that we pay back at a higher interest rate than we would for the State Revolving Fund. And finally, when they're available, we look for grants. Grants in the water sector are very rare. There's not very many, but when they are there, we will pursue them aggressively because every little bit helps. So I just want to recap what I talked about and also kind of set up how we're going to talk about our budget this evening. Our budget consists of two main components. One is the capital projects. So those are the infrastructure upgrades that we're going to have to make in the coming year. And the other is our operations and maintenance. That's what we're going to have to budget for and to keep the system running. So we're going to start this evening by talking about our capital projects, and we've organized them in terms of the cost centers in which they've been developed. And so each of the directors this evening who oversee each cost center and have developed these projects according to plans and studies that they've done are going to talk quickly about each project and what we're going to be spending on in FY2020 for those projects, and also what the funding source is. So this is what each of the slide is going to, each slide will look like for each project, and we'll get started. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jim Lorela. He is our Director of Water Operations. He oversees our watershed and water treatment plant projects.
Thanks, Jamie. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm going to walk through water supply projects through the next several slides. The projects that I'll be discussing this evening are on the west side of the Connecticut River, more related to water supply than distribution. So the majority of the projects will be occurring at the West Parish Filters Water Treatment Plant and a project at the Pilgrim Mountain Water Storage Facility in general. So if you keep that in mind as we move ahead. The first project that we've identified is dam maintenance at various locations. It's a 2020 appropriation of $95,000 for engineering and inspection of the 6 high hazard dams that the Commission owns. So the money is for inspection of the dams and any maintenance work that may result of recommendations from the engineering firm that helps us with that work. The next project is at West Parish Filters. It's an active reoccurring project for treatment system assessment and design. It's a $200,000 line item for unexpected problems that come up during the course of the year at the treatment plant. Small projects that were otherwise unplanned or unbudgeted, things break, need to be repaired. If we need engineering assistance, this is where that money would come from. Water treatment system plant improvements under 005-0027 would be the annual construction of some of the smaller projects that I just mentioned that would have been designed in the previous line item. So if a pump breaks or we need to repair concrete in the tank or some other small project at the treatment plant, the capital money for construction of those improvements for those small projects would come from this line item. At West Parish Filters, we currently have 2 bridges that are they've failed their rating and inadequate load capacity for the uses that we have at the plant. So we're on schedule to do design work for $106,000 in 2020 to come up with designs for new bridges for those the two on-site bridges at West Parish Filters. At West Parish Filters, we have slow sand filters 9 and 10 that we still use for backup and emergency production capacity at the plant. Currently, the existing inlet valve and actuator has significant leaks there for that process. So we have limited ability to modulate the flow that goes into the process, so we need to replace that 36-inch valve and actuator on the inlet line. So that's an $84,000 project that's planned for the next fiscal year. 005-0069 is West Parish Filters wash water tank hydraulics and level control. These are the hydraulic and level control for a 400,000-gallon water storage tank that's across the street from West Parish Filters. The water that goes into that tank we use for cleaning the slow sand filters, and the existing control systems that we have for that tank have failed and they need to be replaced. That's a project that's planned for $245,000 in the next fiscal year. West Parish Filters chemical filter cleaning. So this is on the direct filtration side of the operation for what we call the rapid sand filters at the plant. We did a trial cleaning of one of the filters this year to determine the effectiveness of a robust chemical cleaning of one filter, and we found that there were a lot of benefits to chemical cleaning of the filter media. We found longer run times, better water production, better filter bed expansion during backwashing. So there are a number of improvements that we saw through the filter cleaning process. This $350,000 project that's planned is for the remaining 5 filters, just to clean those and see those improvements there. West Parish Filters pilot plant study is planned for next year. It's an $800,000 study that we'll be performing with AECOM and University of Massachusetts. This is really the first project that's very important to us in terms of dealing with disinfection byproduct challenges that we've had. We've sent public notices out the last 2 quarters to deal with halo acetic acid exceedances. This is really the cornerstone project to get an evaluation of different processes that would provide better treatment at the treatment plant in the future. So the pilot plant study is scheduled for the next upcoming fiscal year. We have $500,000 planned for West Parish Filters water quality process and facilities improvements. So based on the results of the pilot study, as we get more information related to design and selection of the processes that we need in the future at the plant, this will allow for the beginning of the design process for treatment plant improvements. We're currently wrapping up a facilities plan with AECOM for water operations facilities. This line item is a $170,000 planned project to update the facility based on the results of the pilot plan. So there'll be recommendations, updates to cost estimates, and updates to recommendations for treatment process improvements. So that's $170,000 planned for that project upgrade. We have a $750,000 capital project planned for the construction of bulk chemical storage improvements and chlorine room improvements. Both of these projects are driven by regulatory compliance issues and safety needs at West Parish Filters. So we're moving ahead. Those designs have been accomplished this fiscal year, and this is construction money for the upcoming fiscal year. This next project is a $1.4 million revenue funded project for a new clear well and backwash pump project at West Parish Filters. The current clear well that we have at West Parish has infiltration from water sources other than the treated water that may adversely impact the water quality of the treated water. So we need a more secure tankage up there to store the treated water, and also replace the backwash pumps that we use for the rapid sand filter plant. The current backwash pumps at the plant were original 1970s equipment. We had one that failed this fiscal year, resulting in an emergency repair. So we're planning to combine new clear well and backwash pumps into a large design project in the next fiscal year. When the design is done, this project, 005076, is a planned capital construction. So this is the capital money necessary to construct the new clear well and backwash pumps. It's a $16.1 million project. We're anticipating funding from the state revolving fund that will provide the funding source for the new clear well and backwash pumps. We have one project at Proven, Tank 2 reservoir planned for next year. It's a $3 million construction project proposed to build a new geomembrane liner over the top of the tank to prevent infiltration of water into the tank. That poses challenges to maintaining high water quality into our system. So this is a very important project for us to tighten up the storage tank at Proven Mountain. So the next several projects, Bob Stoops, our chief engineer, will cover for you, and I'll leave it to you, Bob.
Evening, Commissioners. I want to talk a little bit about power supply, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the distribution system as well. That'll follow just after this. So we're aware the Commission owns and operates and maintains a 33 megawatt power plant. It generates electrical power as the raw water travels from Cobble Mountain Reservoir down to West Parish Filters. This particular plant goes back to 1930 and needs maintenance to keep operating. The first project listed here is for the 637 transmission line project. It's a high voltage line, brings power from the power plant to the electrical grid for distribution. Some of the older poles have deteriorated and need a replacement. This project is for $100,000 and includes funding for the design of the pole replacements over a 3-year period, but also for the replacement of the first 2 poles this fiscal year. Those are the poles that have most degraded. Next project here is the Unit 3 cooling water system. Power unit number 3 cooling loop is approximately 90 years old and needs replacement. This cooling loop kind of acts as a radiator. It reduces the heat from the generation of electrical power and has it corroded to the point where the generator overheats in warm weather. So it needs to be replaced this fiscal year. The estimated cost is $65,000. Next project listed here is the Broomgate repair project. Broomgate, which is named after the original designer, is a 10-foot wide slide gate that isolates Cobble Mountain Reservoir from the power tunnel. The rocker arm supports the gate when lifting and lowering the gate into place. This arm has corroded over the past 90 years and does not allow for the free movement that the gate needs to get to be put in place. And so it needs replacement. The arm has already been fabricated, but in fiscal year 20 it'll be replaced at a cost of around $200,000. This next project listed here is for the power generator units 1 and 3. They have 72-inch diameter inlet control valves to isolate these units from the high-pressure penstock piping. These 90-year-old valve seats have degraded to a point where the valves can no longer fully close, and the actuators have difficulty opening the valves once the valves have been closed. However, due to the long lead time for the work, we can only replace 1 valve at a time, and so we're going to be repairing one in fiscal year 20 and another one in fiscal year 21. While the penstocks are dewatered for the valve work, we're going to be welding the penstock for repairs made, similar to what we did in Unit 2 last year. The estimated cost for fiscal year 2020 is $500,000 for this project. We need to spend a couple of minutes and talk about the proposed distribution system capital improvements. The Commission owns and operates and maintains a water distribution system in Springfield and Ludlow. This system includes over 580 miles of pipe of various size, 6,000 fire hydrants, and 19,000 valves. So it needs maintenance to keep operating sufficiently. This first project is the booster station SCADA improvements. The SCADA systems for the remote pump stations in the distribution system will be upgraded. This will allow communications from these stations to be sent remotely to the Worcester Street pump station and then back to the operations centers for real-time data gathering and better response time in the event of alarms. The project is estimated to cost about $90,000 this fiscal year. This project is the distribution system rehab project. It allows for the purchase and installation of water main, valves, and appurtenances that are needed in Springfield and Ludlow, primarily in response to main breaks and other utility replacement projects that may arise in the course of a fiscal year. We have $300,000 estimated for this fiscal year for this project. The next project is a hydrant replacement project. The Commission owns and maintains about 6,000 hydrants in Springfield and Ludlow. We plan on replacing 35 hydrants in fiscal year 20 as they typically get damaged from traffic accidents or snowplow incidents and things like that. $75,000 is budgeted for the fiscal year 20 for this ongoing project. It's funded annually. The next project is the Distribution System Assessment and Design Project. This project supports engineering planning, evaluations, and design that's needed to properly operate and maintain the distribution system in Springfield and Ludlow. The 20 budget includes funds for design of a large water main replacement project that will get built in fiscal year 21, and for a distribution system evaluation and the creation of an asset management system to be used for planning and implementing future water main replacement program projects. The distribution system main replacement program on 1920. This is a water main replacement project. It's based on water main age and break information that was collected by our operations group, operates under Dan Dorenzo. We have anticipated over a mile of water main in various areas throughout Springfield that need to be replaced in fiscal year 2020. The cost is about $1.75 million for this work. And the last project listed here in my areas is the water meter replacement program. The Commission owns and maintains approximately 44,000 residential and commercial water meters in Springfield and Ludlow. These meters are typically replaced on a 12 to 15-year cycle. So in fiscal year 20, the Commission plans to replace about 3,500 meters with a budget of about $750,000. Now at this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to the Director of Wastewater Operations, Bill Fuqua.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you, Bob. Over the next few slides, I'd like to highlight some of the capital projects that are going to be scheduled for next fiscal year for the wastewater collection system and the wastewater treatment cost centers of the budget. As you can see from the map depicted on the slide, the Commission's regional wastewater customer base. The Commission provides retail wastewater services to the City of Springfield while providing wholesale wastewater treatment to the 6 surrounding communities immediately adjacent to Springfield. Our first account in the wastewater collection system cost center is the wastewater reporting and regulatory compliance account, and that's an annual reoccurring funded account, and that provides us funding to assist the Commission in maintaining regulatory compliance with both state and federal agencies. The CSO monitoring and reporting account is a new account for fiscal year 2020, and we're projecting an expenditure of $250,000 for developing a CSO, or combined sewer overflow, monitoring and notification program that's compliant with pending state and federal regulations. The collection system cleaning and assessment account is an annual recurring account that's funded for next year for $1.25 million. This account funds the cleaning and assessment of wastewater collection system piping and infrastructure throughout the city. Data from this account, or this project, is used to prioritize collection system repair work that needs to be done throughout the system, and that data is used under the next project, which is the collection system design account, which we use to provide design for the highest priority projects that we've determined through the assessment program. For next year, we're budgeting $173,000 to do the engineering work for about 12 priority projects that we've identified throughout the city. Those projects that were designed in the previous count are the construction for the repair and rehabilitation of those projects are funded under the sewer rehabilitation 1920 construction season account. We anticipate spending approximately $1.75 million during the next fiscal year for the repair and rehabilitation of those 12 projects in the city. So capital projects for the wastewater treatment plant are primarily focused on the wastewater treatment facility, which is located on Bondi's Island in Agawam. The wastewater treatment improvement account is an annual reoccurring account that's funded to basically fund projects and needs that fall outside the scope of services for a wastewater collection system operations contract. The wastewater treatment O&M evaluation account funds the ongoing services of a team of legal and technical professionals that are tasked to solicit a new contract, a new wastewater operating contract for the treatment plant upon the exploration of the current wastewater operating contract in October of 2020. The wastewater regulatory compliance account is an annual reoccurring account that we utilize funds to provide technical and legal services required for the Commission to maintain compliance with state and federal agencies. And with that, I'll hand it off to James Richardson, our Director of Information Technology.
Commissioners, evening. Okay, so communications, a recurring project, is the IT infrastructure of the commission. All data flows through these systems, made up of firewalls, routers, switches, and security appliances. These are upgraded and replaced as they reach end of life, end of support, and can no longer safely move data throughout the commission, information throughout the commission. Okay, on there, the computer servers and copiers ride. It's also a recurring project. All these devices connect to that infrastructure. They also replace when they reach end of life or end of support for the same reason. Keeping information in these systems secure reduces the risk of compromise or interruption of services. And the information systems, these are pieces of software. Again, this is a recurring project, pieces of software that rides on the computers and servers within the previous slide. Comprises all the software the commission uses for their jobs. Also includes professional services to introduce new systems and services to help us be more productive, efficient, and secure. With all three of those, this new Wi-Fi project is made possible. It enables us now to provide the commission with a wireless solution that's robust enough to handle the harsh work environments that we have, secure enough to ensure that the data that rides on it is safe from harm. And the project falls in line with the IT strategic plan to increase the mobile workforce without compromising or placing sensitive data at risk. With that, I'd like to introduce Dan Dorenzo, Director of Field Services. Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Commissioners, hello. I have a handful of projects to talk about here. The first one is commission vehicles. Wait, do I have to shift this? Yeah, I'll say, good. First one is commission vehicles account. Commission vehicles account is funded from reserves on a yearly basis and is used to purchase replacement vehicles utilized for the maintenance of the water and wastewater system. The FY20 appropriation is $535,000. Next we have the operating equipment rolling stock project, we call it. This account's a recurring account funded by revenues and is used for the replacement of commission construction and maintenance equipment, larger equipment. FY20 appropriation is $565,000. Oh yeah. So, I'm not starting again. So the next project is Mill and Locust paving. This project was created to work with the Springfield DPW to help pave this large intersection. The commission has contributed $75,000 towards final paving in a spot where we have installed a lot of new water main in the intersection. Planned appropriation is $75,000. And finally, we have the building and structure improvements account. This project is also funded from revenues on a yearly basis and is used for minor repairs and alterations to office space and building structures at various sites, commission-wide. Yeah, it's that. The FY20 appropriation is $125,000. And now I will turn this back over to Josh.
So, in addition to our capital program, our operations and maintenance budget comprises the majority of the spending in the FY 2020 plan. So the operations and maintenance budget is the bread and butter of the commission. It represents the funding to support the day-to-day operations and activities that allow us to provide services to all of our customers. It includes payroll, purchased services such as utilities, supplies and materials, which includes chemicals for water treatment, as an example, and debt service supporting all of our capital program. The O&M budget for 2020 is $72.4 million. The value of the O&M budget does fluctuate year to year, and it's influenced by several factors, including inflation, price volatility in the fuel and raw materials market, contractual obligations, and increases in debt service to support the capital program that you just that the directors just spoke of. So when we look at the overall 2020 plan, fiscal year 2020 plan, we see a combination of several factors. It includes the capital improvement program at $15.3 million, the O&M budget at $72.4 million, and our reserve requirements of $3.5 million for a total fiscal year 2020 budget of $91.2 million. This is, it's important to note that this is almost exclusively supported by our rate revenue. So when we look at the overall fiscal year 2020 plan, we see where funding is distributed by category. Water supply is 24%, water distribution 16%, sewer collection 24%, wastewater treatment 19%. That's 83% of the budget funding goes directly to production of our services. With the remaining 17% comprised of engineering and administration to support operations and the business end of our outfit. So how do we pay for all of this? Well, we project our revenue, as Jamie had discussed, from a variety of sources to support the planned activities for 2020. It's important to note 88% of the total revenues are coming directly from sales of our services. In addition, we're utilizing $4.5 million of reserves to help offset rates for 2020. Also, as part of the planning process that's been discussed here, we continue to have a longer view of the capital program, which includes development of a 3-year capital plan, and approval of a three-year capital plan each year. This helps provide a look ahead for our budget planning. The board will vote on the 3-year plan and approve funding for the first year of that plan. Overall, the 3-year plan consists of $87 million in spending, and this does not include more than $115 million of ongoing projects that have been funded through previous fiscal years. So what does this mean for you and the ratepayers? Well, the plan requires a very modest rate increase of $8.80 per month or $105 per year to support a robust program of maintenance and renewal. This is an overall increase of 9.9%. It's also important to note that water revenue supports water projects and wastewater revenues support wastewater projects. Overall, we're seeing a water increase of 12.5% and a sewer use increase of 7.3%. So the FY20 rate changes are reflected in our rules and regulations, which are revised each year. In addition to the rates, each year the Commission updates rules and regulations. We have hard copies to hand out here if anybody is interested in looking and seeing what those changes are to the rules and regulations. They're also available on our website at the address seen here, and the Commission again will vote on the changes to the rules and regulations at a board meeting coming up. So it's important to provide some context to the increase in the rates each year. And for our team, we continue to strive to stretch every dollar as far as we can and provide value and multiple benefits to every project and program that we undertake. We have shown an aggressive but thoughtful and necessary investment plan. But as you can see, our rates continue to be affordable. In the context of rate structures across the region, we continue to compare very favorably to all of our peers. As you can see here, we're one of the lowest rate structures in the region, in spite of having invested over $240 million since 2009. We also remain sensitive to the impacts of these increases have on households, and in 2020 we'll be developing a customer assistance program. to help our most financially challenged customers as well. So, when you consider that we can deliver 3 gallons of high-quality potable water to your tap for a penny, then collect it, convey it, treat it, and return it back to the environment clean for a little more than another penny, you can get a sense of the value that we're getting. Think of any other service that you know of that costs less than a nickel. Although it's hard to see at times because we operate out of the spotlight, there is a common thread that weaves through our daily lives. It supports our businesses, our economy, our health, our safety, and most of all, our quality of life. The value of clean water is often taken for granted, but this budget is developed to sustain our commitment to clean water for our customers. So the next steps are going to be an official commission meeting, a public meeting for a vote on the budget and rules and regulations changes. That will take place on Thursday, June 20th, 2019 at 9 a.m. At the John J. Lyons Administration Building at Bondi's Island. Public is obviously invited. We welcome questions tonight if you sign in, and also we can receive questions online at info@waterandsewer.org or directly at the phone number listed above. And as always, we're available 24/7, 365 to answer any of your water or sewer related problems. So thank you for attending tonight, and commissioners, thank you for supporting this. Any questions?
Open the floor for any public comments or questions or concerns.
Counselor?
Can you go into more detail about the 3-year capital improvement program, 3 years, 20 through 2020-2022?
I probably can. So 2020 through 2022, what would you like to know?
I would normally like to know, not being sarcastic, is that part of the public hearing process, discussion of 1-year budget and the 3-year capital extra presentation on the 1-year budget is the capital program for 2021 and 2022, similar to what was given to the elected officials.
Yes, it's exactly what was.
It would be submitted as part of the
Yes,
public hearing.
yes, it was exactly what was presented at the board meeting several weeks ago, as well as what was presented to City Council and the Mayor's office.
To be part of the public record now.
Sure, yes. Anybody else? I do think that as we have evolved as a utility, we've been trying to focus more and more on the budget hearing to be focused on the actual work that is taking place, that the budget is supporting for fiscal year. I think we're closing in on that, and we're really focusing in on the specifics of what the rate increases are funding. And so I think each year we're going to strive more and more to focus in not just on the capital, but expand a little bit on the operating budget as well.
Well, once again, I would like to thank everybody who put time and effort in to having me and be able to the public hearing. And we don't have more people attending not only required for this meeting, but we want to have it available for the public. It's important. And the work you do is very, very important. We do appreciate it. Good.
Yes, and I would just also add for the public record that I think that the changes that we've made in terms of having also another annual meeting to go through the budget in detail, the capital budget in detail, which is all existing and proposed project, I think is helpful to this process, to the board and to staff, so that folks understand the complexities of ongoing projects and how we look at the rate structure and how we develop the rate increase process. I think it's been a big benefit to staff to walk through that process and to help educate the board, and I think it's good for us to get the input back from the board. And so I think that was a value, and we'd like to continue doing that in future years as well. That's all I got.